Okay, this is a short video on a recent addition to my workshop. It's a Warco WM180 lathe. It's not my first lathe. For several years I was using an old grind turn 1947 made modelless lathe. That was great for small jobs, turning brass or aluminium, but it really couldn't manage steel, and there was so much wear in the threads that it was very difficult to produce accurate work. Now the Warco lathe is one of many modern lathes, often referred to as a cheap Chinese lathe, and I think that does these machines a pretty big disservice. I mean, yes, they are cheap. This one cost me £840, including delivery. It's about $1,100, and they are made in China. But they're also excellent pieces of engineering and perfectly capable of doing the job that they were designed for. I mean, this so-called cheap lathe has a double V hardened and ground bed, steel gears, and a variable speed reversible 600-watt motor. And also the tailstock, headstock, cross slide and top slide, they're all solid and very, very well machined. Now during the course of this video there's a few YouTube channels I'm going to mention and a website. And I thoroughly recommend that you give these channels a visit if you have a lathe or just interested in machining. And I'll put links to all of these in the description below. First up is a channel I've mentioned many times before in my videos, and this is Tubal Kane's channel, which is Mr. Pete 222. Now Lyle's channel is brilliant if you're interested in workshop and machining, and not only are his videos educational, but they're also very entertaining. Another great channel for workshop and machining tips is XYNUDU, and this is done by an Australian guy called Rob, and he has some great stuff for machining and workshop tips and projects. Excellent, well worth a look. And then recently, when I was doing some research for this lathe, I came across Aid's workshop. Now, Aid actually has a WM180, and he covers a whole load of projects and mods and stuff for it. Thoroughly recommend that. And then finally, there's a website called Andy's Machines, which details a whole load of mods to Warco lathes, and that's well worth a look. Right, Warco supply the lathe with a comprehensive toolkit. You get a 3-jaw chuck, which is actually mounted on the lathe when you get it, and you also get a 4-jaw chuck. You get a couple of fixed centres, a number 2 Morse taper fixed centre for the tailstock, and there's a number 3 Morse taper fixed centre for the headstock. It's got Allen keys. Most of the gibs are just in screws, and most of the screws on the lathes are cap head Allen screws, so you get quite a nice set of Allen screws. Screwdrivers, another set of screw cutting gears, reversible jaws for the chuck, which you can see at the bottom here. Even get a set of spanners, you know. So it's pretty well specified from the point of view of a toolkit. Now there are some things you're definitely going to have to buy before you can start using it, and Warco supply a lot of these items on their website. However, I found, as Aid did, that they were quite often out of stock, so you need to look elsewhere. And most of these items I got from eBay. I mean, first off, you'll definitely need a set of lathe tools, and you need to make sure it includes a boring bar, as you will definitely need one. Now, I've got both carbide tip ones and high-speed steel ones. I found that high-speed steel lathe tools produce a better finish on brass, and I do a lot of turning of brass, so you know, and these aren't horrendously expensive. Now another essential item that you will need is a tailstock chuck. The lathe is not supplied with a tailstock chuck. Again, Warco will supply them, but they were out of stock with both the arbor and the chuck that I wanted at the time. So I found a very good condition used Jacob's chuck with a number 2 Morse taper on eBay for a very good price. One of the other things that is not supplied, but I can thoroughly recommend, and you will definitely use one at need one at some point, is a live centre. Now these can be a bit pricey, but you know it's a brilliant bit of kit, and you'll definitely need it. And then also, assuming you're going to do some, you will need an knurling tool, and this type obviously is preferable these days because it puts less load on the actual headstock and the spindle. So, and again, these can be got anywhere, but I got that from eBay. Now, I've only had the lathe just over a month, but I've already done several modifications and improvements to it. Now, most of these I've actually pinched from, there are other people's ideas that I've pinched from various websites. And the first one is a mod that Rob suggested on his channel, and it's extremely simple, but very useful. It's a flexible cover attached to the front of the carriage. And mine's made from thick nitrile rubber sheet, which I happen to have some left over. I bought some to make a gasket for one of my model steam engines, and it fits perfectly for what I wanted. It's it's flexible, so if it hits anything, it just folds up. But it helps to keep swarf and chips off of the lathe bed. And basically, there are 2 screw holes in front of the carriage here. You can't quite see them, which I used to fix the travelling steady to, and I simply used a small block of metal, aluminium, drilled a couple of holes in it, mounted it on there, and then mounted the mounted onto the metal block, and it works superbly. Now, this second mod is a removable swarf tray. Now, mine's made out of thin plywood and some strip board, but I saw this on Andy's Machines website, and he made one out of aluminium sheet. Well, I didn't actually have any, so hence hence the plywood. But it makes cleaning the machine a hell of a lot easier, because once you're finished, you literally just slide this out and then empty this, and it catches most of the swarf, and then you just empty it into the bin. So job done, ideal. Aid did a great video on his channel about this next one, using the lathe to make replacement handles for the Carriage cross-side tailstock wheels. These are the original handles, which are functional, but they're not particularly that good. The replacements, which I've made out of brass, as you can see here and here, are much nicer to use. I think Abe made his first one out of aluminium, but you can make them out of either. But these are a joy to use compared to the original handles. Now, this was another great suggestion from Aid. On the lathe, most of the screws are cap head Allen bolts. The tools that hold the screws that hold the tools in on the tool post, the Gibbs adjusting screws, the carriage lock, as it comes originally, and Warco supply a very nice set of little Allen keys to do that, to adjust those with, which are great, but it's a lot easier to use T-handled Allen drivers like this. It's just way more convenient, and you can buy these almost anywhere. I mean, I got mine off of eBay, but a lot of the tool suppliers, even Amazon, B&Q, people like that, you can get these. And basically, what I did was I mounted a piece of wood at the back here with 3 holes drilled in it to take the 3 most common size drivers, and they're just to hand when I need them. Simple tip, but makes life a lot easier. Okay, this next idea is actually mine. Whilst using the lathe, I pretty soon realised that a lamp of some sort would be useful. I didn't want to fix one, as that would just get in the way. So what I came up with was to use my Banggood magnetic base DTI stand, which is this. These cost $9.99 on Banggood, and they're excellent. It's fully adjustable and all the rest of it. And you can pretty much place that anywhere, because obviously the lathe is mainly metal. And then a very cheap LED torch from eBay. There we go. And I simply used a P-clip and the right size bolt to attach it to the head of the DTI stand. And this can be placed anywhere on the lathe. I can swap the torch out for the DTI if I want to, but I've simply ordered another a DTI stand because they are so cheap. It's cheaper to do that, really, and easier. And you can put this anywhere. It's totally. You can lock it, fully adjustable. Get it out of the way if you don't want it. If you don't need it for any particular job, absolutely ideal and cheap. I think the torch is about $2.99, so perfect. Okay, this next one is, well, I think it's basically a design flaw. The carriage lock. When you get this is the carriage lock bolt here. Now, when you get the lathe, it is a cap head recessed Allen bolt, which is fine. And locking the carriage is something you have to do quite often. You're nearly always going to need to lock the carriage. But in order to get to this, when one of these is fitted, you've got to either wind the cross slide pretty much all the way in that direction or all the way in this direction. Otherwise, you can't get to the bolt, basically. So, I suggested replacing the Allen bolt with hex-headed one, which is what I've done. There's a stainless steel hex-headed bolt in there. And the beauty of that is that, of course, even with the cross slide over it, you can still get in there with a spanner and lock the carriage. And that, I mean, that's just amazingly useful and absolutely, you know, a brilliant idea. And you can get these hex-headed. They're 8mm bolts. You can get them off of eBay, cheap as chips. So that is a definite plus point to do that. Okay, these next two are really omissions more than anything else. A carriage stop on a lathe is not only very useful, but it's a good safety feature. Yeah, the WM 180 is not supplied with one. Now, I think a lot of people make them basically, but after a bit of research, I discovered that this one, right, which is made by Draper for one of their lathes, will fit the Warco fine with a bit of packing between the clamps. It normally comes with a quick release lever, which I've just dropped part of on the floor. But this gets in the way, so I just replaced it with a straightforward screw. But this works fine as a carriage stop. There is a bolt which is adjustable, so if you want to find a bit of fine adjustment, you've got it on there. But I would thoroughly recommend getting one of those, and I'll put a link in the description to the actual Draper part. Okay, this is another, I think, omission, well, it's silly really, but it really should be in the instruction manual. The top side here can be swiveled. This is very important if you want to cut tapers and, you know, do all sorts of other operations that require this to be at an angle. However, even though I read through the instructions, it does not tell you anywhere how to swivel the top side because it's fixed when you get there. So I found it on it was on Andy's website actually, and basically what you need to do is wind the top side as pretty much, there's a little bit further to go, but you've got to wind it an awful long way back, and then all of a sudden, magically, these two recessed cap head Allen screws are revealed, and they literally hold the top side in place. So you loosen those off, and then you can swivel it. But I've spent some time reading through the manual, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And obviously, you need to know that. Now, this is just a personal preference, really. Warco supply the lathe with one of these sprung safety chuck keys. Now, these are very good because you can't possibly leave it in. It will just pop out, right? But I don't know about you guys out there, but I find these things immensely annoying. So I went on eBay, and for a relatively small amount of money, you can get yourself a standard chuck key, which is just a hell of a lot easier to use. That one's just a personal preference. So, okay, well, I think all that's left to do is actually run it. Okay, well that's the lathe running in forward at just over 1,000 RPM. So as you can hear, it's very quiet. I mean, obviously there's no load on it at the moment. Oh yeah, it's got power feed, so you know you want to do, it'll do screw cutting. works superbly. But you basically got 2 speed ranges on it, and that's just done by adjusting a drive belt in the gearbox under here. The first speed range is 50 to 1250, and the second speed range is 100 to 2500 RPM. But even flat out, it's not exactly loud. Yeah, so very, very quiet. There is an interlock on the guard, so as soon as you lift the guard up it turns off, and of course it is no voltage release, so basically when you shut this down it won't start up again. You actually have to press the button up here to start it up. This switch over here is a 3 position. 0 is forward in position there, then you've got 0 which is off obviously, and then you've got reverse, so as an emergency stop button on top. So there you go. Well, that's pretty much it for a little look around my WM180 lathe. It'll almost certainly feature in videos in the future, and if I make any more mods to it, I will cover those in separate videos. So I can thoroughly recommend this lathe. Warco are very good when I talk to them about delivery, because obviously I live in a domestic house and I wanted to make sure that I could actually fit it through the door and the rest of it. And it just comes in a small wooden box on a small pallet. Take it off the pallet, the box will come in through a normal front door, so that's no problem. Yeah, I think these are absolutely superb bits of kit, and thoroughly recommend them for the price. So I hope you found that interesting, and thanks for watching.